Hello and welcome to the Movie Attic. I'm Mike, and as I've said 1,000 times before, this is the attic where I discuss and review movies, DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks for all the nice people out there in YouTube land. If you're wondering, which you might not be, I got sick 2 days before Thanksgiving, and so I thought I'd use this deeper sickness-induced voice. I've been told many times I had a face for radio, and now that I have the voice for radio, I thought I'd do an episode with my sick voice. So anyway, enough of that nonsense. You didn't come here for that, of course. But today's big episode is the original Gamera movie from 1965. Of course, this is the 60th anniversary of the movie. If you know the channel or me, which I always say, I know you don't. I grew up watching Gamera and Godzilla on TV as a kid, and so I wanted to fit this episode plus a corresponding episode of the Godzilla movie from 1965 before the year ended as a 60th anniversary type deal. So, I guess let's get into this movie. Of course, this is the Arrow release from that box set there. There's the Blu-ray disc. Comes with this little card with all kinds of fun stuff. Has reversible artwork, which I guess I can show if I get the disc out. Which this might be the original artwork, or the original movie poster for the movie. So I wanted to compare this movie to the first Godzilla movie because there's a lot of similarities between the two. Both this and the first Godzilla movie were both originally in black and white. They're both, of course, kaiju monster movies that were somehow either awakened or in Godzilla's case, I think he was actually transformed as well by the atomic bomb. And in, I think, both cases too, they're the first movie in the Showa era, and they both kind of, Godzilla has an atomic ray, but it almost looked more like mist on the original Godzilla movie. And Gamera, of course, breathes fire. Both movies involve trains somehow. Both movies, the monster is the enemy of Japan in the first movies. Although I will say in the case of Gamera, Gamera does rescue a boy in this first movie. I think in both movies too, the first attack is on a boat, it's not on a boat, but the monster destroys a boat. In both movies, the first appearance to humans comes in the form of their head kind of peeking out over top of mountains, which in Gamera's case, I don't know if it's a mountain or just a mountain of ice. Gamera is woken up because a plane crashed that may have been carrying atomic bombs or an atomic bomb. So anyway, if you know these kind of movies, the movie starts out, something awakens the monster, and both monsters wreak havoc on Tokyo. And in Godzilla's case, and there are, like I said, there's differences, of course. Godzilla is more of a well-scripted movie. But in both cases, too, I think both movies have a very good special effect look to them. And I always chalk that up to them being in black and white. Because if you know anything about these, some of these special effects, that rear projection special effect they use, in color versions of the movie, you can see the color difference between what's behind the action and what's going on right in front of the camera. So and I think that's the case in King Kong as well, that the movie special effects look better because of it being in black and white. But anyway, this movie starts out, this plane gets shot down, and I know this is one of those famous tellings of the story. Gamera's awakened. Like I said, he peeks up over these mountains, attacks this boat, which I will say just the sight of the boat kind of, for me anyway, screams model boat. But that didn't really take away from it. And like I said, the story is not as well written as Godzilla or Gojira. Godzilla, of course, at the end of the first movie, gets destroyed. And Gamera does not. So there's a big difference in itself, even though Godzilla spawned, 30, almost 40 movies. Gamera only had 8, I think, within the Showa era. Godzilla actually ended on a high note, I thought, in the Showa era with, I think it was Terror of Mechagodzilla, to where Gamera really ends on a low note with, I think it was Gamera Super Monster, maybe, which is basically a clip show with 2 alien beings dressed in tights that almost put me in mind of like a Japanese version of Electro Woman and Dyna Girl, if you know that series from the 70s here in America. So that was that, and that's widely considered the worst Gamera movie. So it ended on a very low note. But going back to this movie, you know, when I rewatched it for this episode, I thought, you know, this is really a good movie. It's was a good start to probably the only rival franchise that Godzilla had. It was made 11 years after the original Godzilla movie. And it ends, and spoiler alert, it ends with them tricking Gamera onto the top of a rocket, which then encloses it in the tip of the rocket, and they shoot Gamera into outer space, of all things. And Gamera's not, like, secured in the tip of this rocket. So, I know this stuff, none of this stuff is logical to begin with, But it made me think, that's kind of strange, because couldn't Gamera just kind of, move around in the top of that rocket and throw that thing completely off balance, being that much weight, just being able to do whatever it wants within, it's kind of a confined area, but not like super tight. So the ending was kind of far-fetched to me, and the rocket looks very weird with a big bulbous tip on it. Kind of put me in mind if you've ever seen the Jerry Anderson UFO series. There's ships in that series that have like a big bulbous thing on the end that look kind of strange to me. But regardless of that, like I say, I watched this as a kid. I had the VHS tapes of Gamera, and of course the quality was absolutely terrible. So I did get this originally. It was the DVD that had come out several years ago, and the quality was, of course, much higher. And then in the back, well, I guess I can show it. The thing I liked about these ones was it had the diagram of the inner workings of Gamera on it, which probably doesn't really make any sense. This here is actually that artwork that's the reversible artwork on the other version of the movie. And like I say, I think they were trying to capitalize on the Godzilla movies by, like I said, making them kind of similar. And in fact, this, even though Gamera does have some involvement with trains, he does not attack a passenger train. Unlike Godzilla, who had a train in his mouth and then opened his mouth and it fell into the city, which was actually replicated in Godzilla -1 almost to a T, which I thought was very nostalgic for that movie. But of course, like I say, Gamera saves this kid. This kid really likes Gamera. He doesn't want anything bad to happen to Gamera, because this kid's infatuated with turtles. In fact, he has a pet turtle that his dad and sister make him get rid of. And like Godzilla 2, there's another similarity. Gamera has varying film qualities in the print. Of course, any stock footage is very poor, as far as scratches and all that kind of stuff. And then there's varying levels of film grain, just like Godzilla. Some shots are very nice, very well rendered, and other shots are like, boy, this is some heavy grain. Which I don't mind grain. Grain is what you generally want in an older film. But when it varies wildly, it can be a little off-putting at times. Although I didn't mind it, of course. I knew what to expect. Because some of these movies, I think in Godzilla's case, I don't think the original camera negative's around anymore. I don't know what the story is with Gamera, though. Of course, Gamera has a good look to him. Like I said, it came out of there's 2 box sets that you can put together to make the one picture. And there was actually a huge set that had all the movies, but it kind of went out quickly, and then you saw it on eBay for, exorbitant prices. And like Godzilla, Gamera's mode of transportation is his own weapon. Gamera shoots fire, like he draws his head and his arms and legs in his shell, and then fire shoots out and he spins around in a circle Godzilla just kind of breathes downward and then flies up because of that. Neither one makes a lot of sense to me as far as actually real flying. But like I say, some of this stuff, is absurd to begin with. And even though Godzilla's probably makes a little more sense as far as actually being able to use that as a mode of transportation, I think Gamera's actually looks better on screen. And there's some other scenes in Gamera where Gamera's flying, where he's not spinning around before we find out he can spin around, with the fire coming out. But I believe they're drawn, like right on the film or whatever. They're actually not something shot live. They're either painted or drawn on the film. So, I almost forgot. I do have some stats. I got this piece of paper here sitting for nothing. Of course, it's Gamera the Giant Monster. Or the US version, I think, is called Gamera the Invincible. It's from 1965 by Daiei Studios. It's 79 minutes long in black and white. The aspect ratio is 2:3:5 and it looks like a 1.0 audio. And this particular release, at least according to the back of it, says you can watch it in Japanese with English subtitles, or you can watch the English version with, the English version. So, there you have it. There's all the vital stats. And if that wasn't enough, I don't want to make this video any longer, and it has to be. Just because I'm sick doesn't mean I have to make everybody else sick. So anyway, if I was to rate this first episode of Gamera, I would probably give it 7.5 rolls of pink insulation out of 10. Like I say, it's a great first movie. Oh, and that's another similarity too. As the budget shrank, the episodes got more and more weird and more ridiculous and cheap, just like Godzilla in the early 70s. But regardless of that, that's my rating for it. But if you've seen Gamera as a kid, or you have any of these editions of Gamera, I also have this, I guess I could show. And I've showed it off in a different video, I believe. This is a metal box of the Mystery Science Theater of all the Gamera episodes that appeared on the show. I got that quite a while back. It came with a mouse pad for a computer that said Mystery Science Theater on it. And I actually watched the episode from that pertains to this particular movie. So that was fun to revisit that. So, like I said, if you've seen this movie, or you have any of these releases, or you just like kaiju movies in general, leave a comment down in the comment section. Like I always say, I'd love to discuss it. Hopefully, the next video I won't have this voice. Unless you want me to stay sick, just so I can have a radio voice. So, I guess, until next time when I have a completely different movie here in the attic, and hopefully I'll feel better. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.